All right, good evening, everyone. I would ask that you please rise as we welcome Vicar Lynn Melcare to give our invocation this evening, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good and gracious God, we thank you for those who have gathered here today to guide our city in this difficult time of the pandemic. We appreciate each of these people who bring unique skills and insights to the City Council. Grant those gathered here with your wisdom, as many topics discussed tonight will impact the people of our community. And as the meeting ends, God, send forth your peace and mercy on those gathered here as they travel back home. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. It's 5:30, August 3rd, 2020, and I'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council to order. Roll call, please. Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
We have a quorum. First item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the agenda, and I will call on our City Administrator, Andrew Bremseth, if there are any additions or corrections. Good evening, Andrew.
Good evening, Your Honor, members. Thank you. There is one item, number 4, on the consent agenda that's been requested to come off for clarification. Otherwise, the agenda is the same as in front of you.
Thank you, Andrew. With that, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Brent. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Under public hearings, we have 4 public hearings this evening. First public hearing is for housing tax rebate at 2036 Tower View, and I will call on Clara Beck. Okay.
You just carry that one over.
I'll carry half of it over.
Just in case anybody joins by Zoom. So, these are rebates as we've been seeing them for the past several months. We have the first one up, I believe, is the 2036 Tower View Road. All of the information is in the memo for you, but it is a house where they would get $5,000 of city taxes rebated if passed by council.
Thank you, Clara. If there's any questions on the first tax rebate hearing this evening, with that, I will open the public hearing for the housing tax rebate at 2036 Tower View. Anyone wishing to speak to that particular address, step to the lectern. Anyone on Zoom? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and it's back to the council. We will need a resolution to approve that housing tax rebate. Thank you,
I'll make
Scott.
that resolution.
Thank you, Jim. Any further comments, questions, or discussion before we call for the roll? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Second item under public hearings will be a hearing for the housing tax rebate at 1829 Cascade Street South. And with that, we will open the hearing for 1829 Cascade Street South housing tax rebate. Anyone wishing to speak? Clara?
Just a note on this one, this is a property brought forth by Donovan Rognus that fits in with the other townhomes that have also been approved through this program.
Thank you, Clara. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Step to the lectern. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. And it's back to the council. We will need a resolution to approve this housing tax rebate as well. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Krista.
I have a
Yes, go ahead.
question on that. Obviously, this is like another 2 houses for, this development. I just wondered if we can get an update of how many of these houses have actually been started to be built. we're kind of handing these things out like, there's no tomorrow, and you don't have to actually sort of build a house until 2022. And, we're looking at a $4 billion deficit at the state level, which is going to impact LGA payments probably even this year and going certainly next year. And, if we keep, kind of builder just keep like a deck of cards, are they just kind of getting these permits and are they actually building? For me, obviously I will vote against it again, but I think I would like staff to come forward with a list of all of these projects that we've issued a $5,000 credit for, how many have actually pulled a building permit, and how many have actually started construction. Because obviously the sooner they start construction, then the sooner the $5,000 is eroded, and then the sooner the citizens of Fergus Falls get the benefit of this program. But if they're just going to stack them up and hold them forever, I know they can't hold them forever, but they can hold them for 2 years. But the goal of this is to get houses built. So I'd just like an update on, how many permits we've issued, how many have actually paid for a building permit, and how many have actually started construction.
Sure. We can get that information by the next meeting. Just to clarify, they don't actually receive the rebate until the house is built, correct? Until the house is on the
That's
rolls?
correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, but you can just keep assembling the permits.
Sure, but we wouldn't actually
Yeah,
pay the 5,000 out?
yeah, but the goal is to stimulate building, not for people to sit on them. Well, that was my understanding. It's meant to be an economic stimulus.
Sure. But also, I mean, not to debate on this, but if they have a building permit and don't build, I wouldn't think that having an incentive of $5,000 is going to incentivize them not to build a building either. So, I mean, I wouldn't imagine they're just collecting these for the heck of it. But again, not to be, I understand you don't agree with the program, so. With that, we have a resolution and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Item number 3 is a resolution for a tax rebate in the same development, and we will need a public hearing for that one individually as well. So we will open the public hearing for the tax rebate at 1831 Cascade Street South. Anyone wishing to speak to that, please step to the lectern. Anyone on Zoom? Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing, and that one is back to the council if someone would like to offer a resolution approving that housing tax credit rebate. Thank you, Tom.
I'll second, Your Honor.
Justin? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Finally, 4th is a public hearing for housing tax rebate at 102 Laura Lane. We will open that public hearing. Anyone wish to speak to that, please step to the lectern. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing, and it's back to the council. We will need a resolution approving that housing tax rebate. Thank you, Caroline.
I'll second.
Thank you, Krista. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. There are no bids to award. There are no items under petitions and communications. Under the consent agenda, we have 11 items. Scott has asked for item number 4, the remaining 10. Anyone else want to discuss any of the remaining 10 items individually? Seeing none, we pass that with a resolution, those 10. Someone would like to offer that?
Offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justin.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Tom. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Item number 4, I believe was Scott wanted to have a clarification. There was a misprint in one of the earlier agendas on as far as the HRA levy of 0.0185%. Scott, did you?
Yeah,
It was printed in the Daily Journal at 0.185%, but the actual number is 0.0185%. So I just wanted to make sure that we had a clear understanding of that
Sure,
for the public.
sure. Okay, yeah,
I have no issue with it. I think it's fine.
sure. Someone like to offer that?
I will.
Have a resolution? Thank you, second. Yeah, so just to clarify, it is correct as printed in the agenda this evening. It's 0.0185% for the estimated taxable market value within the city limits in 2021. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Under ordinance and resolutions, item number 1, we will need a resolution introducing the sale of real estate for the purchase agreement for the city-owned Shopko parking lot. I'll call on our city administrator, Andrew Bremseth.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members, before you this evening is a purchase agreement with, between the city and Rivers Edge Investments LLC for the city-owned parking lot on the corner of Cascade and Lincoln, which is in the same parking lot as the Shopko, the former Shopko building, so folks know what I'm talking about. The council previously approved a non-binding letter of intent, which spelled out the process towards this acquisition. And part of that process was going through an appraisal process to determine a purchase price. Rivers Edge Investments hired an appraisal, the city hired an appraisal, and then those two appraisers picked a third-party appraiser who then picked the better of the two, which is what was spelled out in the letter of intent that we approved. The city's appraisal was picked as the more appropriate one, and that appraisal price was determined to be $328,000. So that's the price you'll see within the purchase agreement this evening. That's where that number came from. The way the city charter reads is that we have to have a minimum of 10 days in between introducing a sale of property and then actually approving the resolution to sell the property. So if the council still wants to move forward with this tonight, we would just be introducing that, and then we can take action at the next council meeting to make that official in the purchase agreement. That gives the public an opportunity to reach out to you folks to comment, to weigh in on whether or not the city should move in that direction. So tonight we're introducing this. The closing date is contemplated to be March 1st of 2021, so not too far down the road here, and the buyer has a period of 120 days to perform due diligence, which is fairly standard and common. I did in the memo note that one of the contingencies talks about the city, the buyer, which would be Rivers Edge Investments, needing to get tax increment financing approved by the city with terms acceptable to them. So I wanted to note that that was in there as a contingency, but it is not committing the city to approving TIF at this time. That's a conversation that still needs to take place down the road, and you guys will have the ability to make that decision. But that was a contingency that the buyer wanted in there because he needs that as part of his project financing. So just wanted to be clear on that. I don't have anything else to add other than $328,000. The agreement's been reviewed by attorneys for both parties. Everything is fairly standard and acceptable. And if you all agree tonight, I would introduce, or the resolution introducing this would be appropriate.
Thank you, Andrew. Just a quick question, clarification. The tax increment financing agreement, do we anticipate that would be negotiated before closing? Is that before March 1st?
Yeah.
With the documentation that goes along with that?
Yeah, because of that contingency, that has to be satisfied prior to closing. So that the anticipated conversation will be forthcoming here this fall.
Thanks. And with that, we're going to introduce that with a resolution. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Just an ordinance, or just?
This is a resolution introducing the sale.
Yep. Someone like to offer that resolution?
I'll offer the resolution, but I also got a question. So.
Certainly.
I'll second, Your Honor.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
I just wonder if we can just describe the qualification of the appraiser so that if people question, where the appraisal come from, sort of who it was, that they're qualified to do it.
Yep, so the buyer hired an appraiser Black Dog Appraisal, I think is the name of the company. The city hired Daryl Matthew, who is a local appraiser. We've worked with him on other projects as it relates to the Port Authority, specifically the Nordgren property. So we've had good luck with Mr. Matthew. And then the third appraiser that was selected by those two was out of Detroit Lakes. Help me with the name. Tinjum? Is it Brian Tinjum? Who's a certified appraiser in Detroit Lakes. So all certified appraisers that are fairly local within the area and have a good grasp on what the market looks like. The two parties, the initial appraisals, use different means and methods, I would say, as it relates to the appraiser. They looked at it in different ways. So then the third party was the one who determined that what Mr. Matthew did on behalf of the city was more appropriate and that should be the price.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Ben?
Yeah, Scott, go ahead.
There was likely some interest in the community to comment on this. I think that when we have something like this come up, it may seem as though it comes as a surprise to the community as they didn't hear any of the negotiations that we do behind closed doors. And even the idea of it being done behind closed doors sounds sort of covert or something when it's just part of the legal process and there's nothing, shady about it. That's just how it has to be done when you're negotiating something. But if there are people that want to comment and want to have some input into this, again, how is it exactly that they can do that, and how is that format going to play out for us now?
Yeah, two things. First, I'll talk more about the use, that might help, and then I'll talk about that. This is for a mixed-use development. I don't have specifics that I can give this evening because I don't know if that's been fully defined. This same investor group is the ones who purchased the former Shopco building. They are the owners, so they would be owning the entire parcel. So it's not just out of left field. There is some strategy here amongst a bigger development, and this is a piece of that. I would encourage folks to reach out to city council members with their views on whether or not they think the city should sell this property for a mixed-use development, whether the purchase price is appropriate, and then it's ultimately up to the mayor as to whether or not to let folks comment on this, but I think that would be appropriate at the next meeting if he wanted to allow folks, if they felt strongly one way or the other, to give their feedback on this land sale. It's not very frequent that we sell property, and certainly not one of this magnitude and significance and importance in the city.
And I would just say that absolutely people will have an opportunity to comment at the next meeting if they choose to do so. So, thank you, Andrew. Any other questions of the council? We have a resolution on the floor in a second. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Tonight we have claims in the amount of $902,220.87. If we have any questions, we'll direct them to Bill Salmo, our finance director. We get a resolution on the floor. Thank you, Jim.
I'll second.
Thank you, Krista. Scott, go ahead.
Got a couple of questions that I had I passed on to Bill earlier, and so I think he's aware of them. But some of the specifics in the resolutions that I would just like him to publicly comment on so that we can all be aware of it. One item was for over $10,000. Let me back up just a minute. In the course of going through the resolutions, I wanted to just also note in the course of the continuing education on what it costs to run the city, there was nearly $30,000 spent on boulevard tree removal and another almost $10,000 on tree removal for storm damage. And I thought that it was just interesting. I'm expecting that was for a 1-month period. Is that right, Bill? Typically?
I would have to see exactly which one you're talking about on those.
They were both for Cars Tree Service. Yeah, one was 29-something thousand and the other was 9,000 something. And I didn't give him an update, heads up on this one. Sorry, Bill, that kind of caught you on the spot there.
I'll look to Guy too. It could be not specifically 1 month, but they bill for a time period. We certainly have our program where we do our tree trimming, try to do it, is it like a quarter of the city for a year?
Yeah, that was done earlier in the year,
Yep.
like in February.
And then, our normal disease tree removal happens throughout, and then we're billed periodically,
Okay.
on the progress of that, so.
I just thought it was interesting. People often have to deal with trees in their yard. It might be a $1,000 bill, $1,500 bill, or whatever, and the city's got lots more trees to keep track of.
Right?
The items that I'd asked you to respond to, the first one was over $10,000 regarding the preparation of legal documents for the Nordman property, and apparently, or as it happened, we ended up not selling it, even though we were getting ready to sell it, and that was having to do with that legal work.
Yep. So the Port Authority was looking to sell the Norgren property. It's property that's been owned by the Port Authority since the mid-90s, and looking at selling a portion of that. But there some work on title, some lot lines, easements, and then all the publication costs, different expenses that the law firm then incurred along with that. So it's basically getting that property ready, to sell, so it's ready if the Port Authority decides to do that again in the future. But there was no sale at this time, so we had no proceeds coming in to offset that yet, but possibly in the future if that choice is made by the ports.
Well, for what it's worth, maybe a little PR on it right now will generate
There you
some
go.
interest, who knows? One of the other questions I had for you was regarding money that was transferred interfund, nothing that was a significant amount of expense for us, but something called the PIR Project 2004 Fund.
Yep.
And I was wondering if you could define that for us a little bit.
So when we say PIR, that's Permanent Improvement Revolving Fund, and that falls under Minnesota Statute 429. So you hear us talk about that when we're going to come and issue bonds to put in new streets or water, sewer, stormwater lines, those kind of things. It's infrastructure-related bonding. The 2004 bonds were paid off at the end of 2019, so we had some money left in the Capital Project Fund and a little bit in the Debt Service Fund, and when those bonds are paid off, we transfer that over to the general PIR fund. But you have to use those funds for other qualifying PIR projects. So instead of bonding for, say, the next project, like when we look at Burlington, we're going to look at paying cash for a portion of that, and that's where that originates from, is some of those funds that are left over. We revolve them around again, is why that revolving fund portion of that. So again, they have to fall under 429 statute, though, to be qualified.
And in this case, it was about $173,000.
117, I think, on the one, and just a few hundred on the other, maybe?
Okay.
Yep.
The last question I had has to do with the audiovisual system in here, and we had some money that was spent for the AV system that was tied to the coronavirus funding that was available to us.
Yep. So as you recall, we did a large project between installing much, new audio system as well as the video system. That was all done. That's separate from the coronavirus relief fund. But now with all the Zoom meetings and all the virtual meetings that we're doing and the live streaming, to improve that yet a little bit more, we had to do a little more work, both on the platform up here underneath that and then in the back room as well, to improve for that. And since that's really, related to those virtual meetings, is why we felt that is appropriate for those coronavirus relief funds. And you're going to see more of that coming as we get to work on that, as those funds will be expended by November 15th. So we have to have the checks written on those by November 15th. So you'll start to see more of that happening out, probably each meeting. So, and we're working through the tax levy committee on much of that too, and we'll be back to the council with that soon as well.
Thank you, Bill. Any other questions for Bill? If not, we have a resolution to pay the bills. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. There are no board, committee, or department reports. Under staff and administrative officer reports, we have a informational update on bond refinancing, and we'll ask our finance director, Bill Salmore. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Your Honor. Wanted to bring you a little bit of good news here tonight, that
Yay.
working with our bond consultants, interest rates are at historic lows. You'll see that in the memo prepared by Baker Tilly. So we're looking at the potential of refinancing 6 different issues of our bonds. So they're looking at, our whole bond portfolio, what makes sense, where can we find some savings. The good news, what we're looking at is when we combine the savings from these 6 different issues, it could be around $550,000 that we will save. And that's over the time period from 2021 through 2032. So I'm very excited about that and wanted to give you that information. These relate to those permanent improvement revolving fund bonds, 2 of those issues. The City Hall improvement bonds we did in 2010. The Law Enforcement Center, we're going to see some good savings on that one. Those were issued in 2012. The landfill bonds from when we constructed the new landfill. And then the 2012 water fund bonds that relate actually back to 07 when we constructed the water tower on the west side over by the industrial parks. So combining all those, again, we're at historic lows. Wanted to give you this heads up sooner rather than later, but we'll come back yet in August with a final financing plan. As far as a calendar on that, we would look at coming to you on September 8th to actually approve the sale of that finance plan, to get all this closed before December. So when those call dates of December 1st are available, that we can enact those bonds right away and try to get this. We're kind of, in a good spot to do that, so we don't want to delay. So just information for you tonight. And
Thanks, Bill. What was the total number of estimated savings?
543,000 is what Baker Tilly.
No.
It will be a little different than that, of course, because interest rates change, every day. But overall, we're looking at that, $550,000.
Well, good work to you and good work to Doug Green down at Baker Tilly. And so thanks for that bit of good news. Thank you, Bill.
Bill, those bonds will still run and end just like they were going to before, correct?
Yep, you're absolutely right.
We're not running those out over another 20 years. It's
Very good point. We are not lengthening the term at all. If anything, we were going to look at, are there instances where we want to shorten anything? But as of now, we're going to keep the terms the same, so not lengthening the debt of the Fergus at all, just looking at interest rate savings then over that time, which translates to lower tax levies because we're going to be paying less interest. It's going to bring down some costs in the water and the refuse fund as well. So that's the good news on that. But yeah, not lengthening the terms at all.
Yeah, good point of clarification. Any other questions for Bill? If not, thank you, Bill, for that good news. Yeah. There is no old or unfinished business. There is no new business. So if there's no other business to come before the council, just a couple miscellaneous announcements. Filing is open for the mayor's position as well as the 4 city council seats. Currently open, runs through a week from tomorrow, August 11th. So see Lynn, call Lynn at City Hall, get in all the information. She will make sure that you have the information you need. Also, a week from tomorrow, August 11th, is the primary election, so get out and vote in the primary election. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Is that correct, Lynn? And if you have any questions on where your polling place is, again, call City Hall. Lynn will make sure that you get the information. Yes, Lynn?
Can we also make an announcement that absentee voting is open, but your ballots must be postmarked by
The day.
By the election day.
By election day.
Absentee is available through Ottertail County. People aren't comfortable going out and about publicly to go vote.
Absentee voting is open, but your ballot needs to be postmarked by August 11th, the day of the election.
Contact Ottertail County Auditor's Office for absentee.
All right, thank you, Lynn. If there's nothing else to come before the council, we're adjourned to a closed meeting pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D 05 Subdivision 3 regarding a contract.